Tom Bradley cursed under his breath as smoke poured from his cargo hauler's engine compartment. The old ship had been making strange noises for 3 days, but he had hoped it would hold together long enough to reach the next trading post. Now, he was drifting in Asterian space, the most dangerous place for a human to break down. The Asterian Empire controlled half the known galaxy, and they did not like humans very much. Most of the time, they ignored Earth and its small colonies, treating them like annoying insects. But sometimes, when humans wandered into their territory, bad things happened. Tom had heard stories of entire crews disappearing, never to be seen. Again, his radio crackled to life. The voice spoke in perfect English, which made it even more scary. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Imperial space. Prepare to be boarded." 3 massive Asterian warships appeared around his tiny hauler. Each one was 10 times bigger than his ship, their hulls gleaming silver in the light of the nearby star. Tom had no choice but to shut down his engines and wait. The Asterians who boarded his ship were tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and eyes like liquid mercury. They wore uniforms that looked more like art than clothing. And they moved, with the smooth confidence of people who ruled the galaxy. Their leader, a female with golden markings on her forehead, looked around Tom's cluttered cargo bay with obvious disgust. "You will come with us," she said. It was not a request. They took him to their flagship, a ship so large that Tom could not see its edges through the windows. The corridors were wide and tall, decorated with flowing designs that hurt his eyes to look at. Everything was clean and perfect, making Tom very aware of his dirty work clothes and calloused hands. They brought him to a room that was bigger than most buildings Tom had seen. At the far end sat a woman on a throne made of what looked like living crystal. She was the most beautiful and terrifying person Tom had ever seen. Her presence filled the room like electricity, and when she looked at him, he felt like a mouse being studied by a hawk. "I am Empress Liana," she said. Her voice was like music, but there was pain hidden in it. "You are the human mechanic." "Yes, Your Majesty," Tom managed to say. He was not sure if that was the right way to address an empress, but she did not. "Correct him. My spies tell me that humans can fix anything, that you make broken things work when no one else can. Is this true?" Tom thought about all the impossible repairs he had made over the years. Ships that should have been scrapped. Engines that every expert said were dead forever. "I try my best, Your Majesty. Sometimes I get lucky." The Empress stood up from her throne. She was even more imposing standing, tall and regal in robes that seemed to be made of starlight. "I need more than luck, human. I need a miracle." She gestured to a smaller throne beside hers. On it sat a young woman who looked to be in her 20s. She had the same pale blue skin as the other Asterians, but her eyes were different. They were sad and distant, like someone who had lost something precious and could not find their way back. "This is my daughter, Princess Mira," the Empress said. Her voice broke just a little on the name. 3 years ago, she was the brightest star in our empire. She spoke 12 languages, wrote poetry that made grown warriors weep, and could debate philosophy with the greatest minds in the galaxy. Then came the plague. Tom looked at the princess more carefully. She was beautiful, but there was something wrong. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. When her mother spoke about her, she did not react at all. "The neural plague struck our capital world without warning," the Empress continued. "It killed thousands, but Mira survived. The disease is gone from her body, but it took something with it. She has not spoken a single word in 3 years. She cannot write, cannot communicate in any way. The doctors say her mind is trapped inside her own body." Tom felt his heart break a little. The princess was so young, and the sadness in her eyes was the worst thing he had ever seen. "What do the doctors say?" Can they help her? The Empress laughed, but there was no joy in it. We have tried everything. The finest neural surgeons in the galaxy have examined her. We brought in mystics from the far worlds, technicians who can rebuild a brain from scratch, even ancient AIs that understand the mind better than we do. Nothing works. They all say the same thing. The damage is too complex, too deep. There is no hope. She walked closer to Tom, and he could see the desperation in her silver eyes. But then my spies brought me stories about humans. How you fix things that cannot be fixed. How you find solutions where there are none. How you never give up, even when the universe says it is impossible. Tom looked at the princess again. She was staring right through him, as if he was not there at all. But for just a moment, he thought he saw something flicker in her eyes. A tiny spark of awareness, quickly gone, but definitely there. I will make you an offer, human, the Empress said. Restore my daughter's voice, teach her to speak again, and I will give you anything you want. Entire star systems, fleets of ships, more wealth than your planet has ever seen, anything. Tom's mouth went dry. The Empress was offering him riches. Beyond imagination, he could buy his own planet, his own fleet, become one of the most powerful humans in the galaxy. All he had to do was the impossible. Fix a mind that the greatest experts in the galaxy said could not be fixed. He looked at the princess one more time. This time, he was sure he saw that flicker of awareness. She was in there somewhere, trapped and alone, waiting for someone to find her. I'll try, Tom said. The Empress closed her eyes in relief. Then you have already given me more hope than I have had in 3 years. Tom Bradley, cargo hauler and mechanic from the outer colonies of Earth, had just agreed to attempt the impossible. As guards led him to quarters in the royal wing of the palace, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. But when he thought of those sad, intelligent eyes, he knew he had to try, even if it meant his death. Dr. Valen looked at the human with barely hidden disgust. The creature was short and ugly, with rough skin and small eyes. His clothes were stained with grease, and his hands were scarred from years of manual labor. How could this primitive being succeed where the finest minds in the Empire had failed? The medical wing is through here, Valen said coldly, leading Tom through corridors lined with the most advanced equipment in the galaxy. You will find that we have already tried every possible treatment. The princess's condition is hopeless. Tom followed the tall Asterian doctor, trying not to touch anything. Everything looked expensive and fragile, like it might break if he breathed on it wrong. The medical wing was bigger than most hospitals on Earth, filled with machines that hummed and glowed with soft light. They stopped in front of a room with walls made of transparent crystal. Inside, Princess Mira sat in a chair by the window, looking out at the gardens. She wore a simple white dress, and her dark hair fell around her shoulders like a waterfall. She was beautiful, but she sat so still that she might have been a statue. The princess spends most of her time here, Dr. Valen explained. We have tried to engage her in various activities, but she shows no interest in anything. She eats when food is placed before her, sleeps when led to bed, but she does not truly live. Tom watched the princess through the crystal wall. She did not move, did not seem to notice them talking about her. But something about the way she held her head made him think she was listening. What exactly did this plague do to her brain? Tom asked. Dr. Valen pulled up a holographic display showing the princess's brain scans. The images were beautiful and terrifying, swirling patterns of light that showed every thought and memory. The plague created interference patterns in her neural pathways. Think of it like static on a radio. The signal is still there, but it cannot get through clearly. We have tried to amplify the signals, bypass the damaged areas, even replace sections of brain tissue. Nothing works. Tom studied the scans carefully. He had never seen anything like this before, but the patterns reminded him of something. "It looks like electromagnetic interference," he said slowly. "Like when two radio signals get crossed and jam each other." "That is a very crude comparison," Dr. Valen said with a sniff. "The brain is infinitely more complex than your primitive radio devices." "Maybe," Tom said. "But sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one." He was allowed to examine the princess's medical records. The files filled an entire room, thousands of pages of notes and test results from dozens of doctors. Tom read through them all, looking for something the experts had missed. The more he read, the more convinced he became that everyone was making the problem too complicated. Every doctor had tried to fix the princess with advanced technology, neural implants, genetic therapy, drugs that could rewrite memories. They were all trying to force her brain to work around the damage. But what if the answer was simpler? What if her brain just needed help remembering how to work normally? Tom requested permission to spend time alone with the princess. Dr. Valen was horrified by the idea, but the Empress agreed. If the human could succeed where others had failed, she was willing to try anything. The first time Tom entered the princess's room, she did not look at him. He sat down in the chair across from her and started talking. He told her about his ship, about the cargo runs he made between distant worlds, about the strange things he had seen in his travels. She gave no sign that she heard him, but he kept talking anyway. "I once had a ship's computer that got struck by lightning," he said. "After that, it could only speak in poetry. Everything came out in rhymes. The cargo bay is full today. We must be on our way." Drove me crazy for months before. I figured out how to fix it. He thought he saw the corner of the princess's mouth twitch just a little. It might have been his imagination, but it gave him hope. Tom started bringing tools and parts to the princess's room. He worked on small projects while he talked to her, letting his hands stay busy while his mind thought about her problem. He built a simple radio from spare parts, demonstrating how electromagnetic waves could be blocked and cleared. "See, the signal wants to get through," he explained, adjusting the antenna. "It's not broken, it's just confused. Sometimes you don't need to rebuild the whole radio. Sometimes you just need to help it remember how to tune in properly." On the third day, something changed. The princess turned her head slightly to watch what he was doing. It was a tiny movement, but it was the first time she had shown interest in anything since he arrived. Dr. Valen was not pleased with Tom's methods. "You are wasting valuable time with these primitive demonstrations," he complained to the Empress. "The princess needs real medical treatment, not stories and toys." But the Empress had noticed the change too. For the first time in 3 years, her daughter was showing signs of life. "Let the human continue," she ordered. Tom began building something new in the princess's room. It looked like a simple metal headband with wires and small lights, cobbled together from parts he found in the palace workshops. Dr. Valen called it crude and dangerous, but Tom had a different word for it: hope. "This isn't going to force your brain to work," Tom explained to the princess as he worked. "It's just going to help clear out some of the static, like tuning a radio to get a clearer signal." The princess watched him work with growing interest. Sometimes she would lean forward slightly when he explained something particularly interesting. Once, when he dropped a small part, she pointed to where it had rolled under the table. Tom spent hours calibrating the device, adjusting frequencies and signal strengths. It was delicate work, and one mistake could make things worse instead of better. But Tom had been fixing impossible things his whole life. He knew how to be patient, how to listen to what a machine was trying to tell him. On the 7th day, Tom thought the device was ready. Dr. Valen protested that it had not been properly tested, that it could damage the princess further. But when Tom looked into Princess Mira's eyes, he saw something that had not been there before. She wanted to try. "Are you ready?" Tom asked, gently. The princess looked at him for a long moment. Then very slowly, she nodded. It was the first time she had communicated anything in 3 years. Tom carefully placed the device on her head and turned it on. The lights blinked softly and the princess's eyes closed as the gentle frequencies began their work. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the princess's lips moved, just slightly, as if she was trying to remember how to form words. Tom held his breath and waited. "Thank you," she whispered. The words were so soft that Tom almost missed them. But they were there, real and clear and beautiful. After 3 years of silence, Princess Mira had spoken. In the hallway outside, Dr. Valen stood frozen in shock. The impossible had happened. A primitive human with crude tools had accomplished what the finest medical minds in the galaxy could not. News of the princess's first words spread through the palace like wildfire. Within hours, every noble and courtier had heard the impossible story. A human mechanic had done what the greatest doctors in the empire could not do. Some were amazed. Others were suspicious, and a few were angry. Lord Commander Rex was one of the angry ones. He had served the empire for 40 years, fighting wars and crushing rebellions. The idea that a primitive human could succeed where Asterian science had failed was insulting. It made the empire look weak. "This is madness, Your Majesty," he said, during an emergency council meeting. "We cannot trust our most precious princess to this alien creature. What if his device damages her mind further? What if this is all some human trick?" Empress Liana sat on her crystal throne, looking more alive than she had in 3 years. Her daughter had spoken. After endless nights of despair, there was finally hope. "The princess is already lost to us, Rex. If there is any chance to bring her back, we must take it." "But at what cost?" demanded Lady Vera, the Empire's chief diplomat. "Word of this will spread to other species. They will think we are so weak that we need humans to solve our problems. Our enemies will see this as a sign of failure." "Let them think what they want," the Empress said firmly. "I care more about my daughter than I do about politics." In the medical wing, Tom was facing his own problems. Princess Mira's first words had been wonderful, but they were also fragile. The neural pathways in her brain were still damaged, and speaking was difficult for her. She could manage a few words at a time, but longer conversations were impossible. Tom worked with her every day, gradually increasing the time she wore the neural harmonizer. He discovered that her condition was not just medical, it was partly psychological too. 3 years of silence had created mental walls that were just as hard to break through as the physical damage. "It's like learning to walk again after being in bed for years," Tom explained to Dr. Valen, who had reluctantly started helping with the treatments. "Her brain knows how to speak, but it's forgotten how to want to speak." They developed a routine. Tom would sit with the princess for hours, talking about everything and nothing. He told her stories about Earth, about the small colonies where he had grown up, about the vast emptiness of space between stars. Slowly, she began to respond. "What is Earth like?" she asked one day, her voice still weak but getting stronger. Tom smiled. It was the first question she had asked. "It's beautiful," he said. "Lots of water and green plants. The sky is blue, not purple like here. And it's crowded, billions of people living in cities that stretch to the horizon." "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes, but I like traveling more. Every world is different. Every species has something new to teach you." The princess thought about this for a long time. "I used to love learning about other worlds," she said quietly. "Before the plague, I studied the cultures of 100 different species. I wanted to visit them all someday." "You still can," Tom said. "When you're better, you can travel anywhere you want." "If I get better." "You will. You're already talking to me, aren't you?" As the princess's condition improved, The political situation in the palace grew worse. More and more courtiers began to see Tom as a threat. If a simple human could solve problems that Asterian experts could not, what did that say about Asterian superiority? The tipping point came when Princess Mira spoke her first full sentence in 3 years. She was having lunch with Tom when she suddenly said, "I remember the taste of sunberries from the royal gardens. They were my favorite when I was little." It was a small thing, but it represented a huge breakthrough. The princess was not just speaking. She was remembering, connecting with her past, becoming herself again. Tom was so excited that he immediately reported the progress to the Empress. Unfortunately, he was overheard by several courtiers, including Lord Commander Rex. That night, Rex called a secret meeting of the noble families. "This human is making fools of us all," he said to the gathered nobles. "How long before other species start demanding human solutions to their problems? How long before they stop respecting Asterian authority?" "What do you propose?" asked Lord Kane, who controlled the Empire's military research programs. "The human has served his purpose. The princess can speak a few words. That's enough. We should send him away before he causes more damage to our reputation." "And if the Empress refuses?" Rex's eyes were cold. "Then we may need to make the decision for her." Tom knew nothing about these political games. He was focused entirely on helping Princess Mira recover. Every day brought new progress. She could speak for longer periods, her voice was getting stronger, and most importantly, she was beginning to show interest in the world around her. "Tell me about the other colonies," she said one afternoon. "The ones where humans live." "Well, there's New Terra, where they grow food for half the sector. The soil there is red and the sunsets are incredible. Then there's Station Beta, built inside an asteroid. The people there are miners, tough as nails but friendly once you get to know them." "Are humans treated well in the galaxy?" Tom hesitated. It was a complicated question. "Not always. Most species see us as newcomers, primitives who don't belong among the stars. We have to work twice as hard to get half the respect." The princess was quiet for a long time. "That's not fair." "No, it's not. But life rarely is. When I am Empress, I will change that." Tom looked at her in surprise. It was the first time she had spoken about the future, about taking her place in the Empire. "You think you'll be Empress someday?" "Mother has no other children. It is my duty." She paused, then added quietly, "If I can ever be worthy of it again." "You're already worthy. You just need to believe in yourself." That night, Tom was working late in his laboratory when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Then armed guards entered the room, their weapons drawn. "You will come with us," the squad leader said. "What's going on?" Tom asked, but the guards did not answer. They led him through dark corridors to a small room in the basement of the palace. Lord Commander Rex was waiting for him. "Sit down, human," Rex ordered. "We need to talk." Tom remained, standing. "I'd rather hear what you have to say first." Rex smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Very well. You have served your purpose. The princess can speak a few words, which is more than we had before. Now it is time for you to leave." Bisat. "Princess isn't fully recovered yet. She needs more treatment." "That is not your concern anymore. You will be taken to your ship and escorted out of Asterian space. If you try to return, you will be killed." "Does the Empress know about this?" "The Empress is emotionally compromised. She cannot make rational decisions about her daughter's treatment. We are acting in the best interests of the Empire." Tom felt anger rising in his chest. These people were willing to abandon the princess just to protect their pride. "And if I refuse to go?" Rex nodded to the guards. "Then you will suffer an unfortunate accident. Space travel is dangerous after all." Tom realized he was trapped. If he fought, he would be killed, and the princess would lose her only hope of full recovery. If he left, she might still improve on her own, but probably not completely. He was still trying to decide what to do when alarms started blaring throughout the palace. The lights flickered back to normal, and Rex's communicator started buzzing, frantically. "Sir, we have a problem," came a panicked voice. "The palace is under attack." Explosions rocked the palace as enemy ships screamed overhead. Rex grabbed his communicator, his face pale with shock. "Report! What's happening out there?" "It's the Shadow Fleet, sir," came the reply. "3 battleships coming in fast. They're targeting the Royal Wing." Tom knew about the Shadow Fleet. They were rebels who wanted to overthrow the Empire and divide its territory among themselves. If they succeeded, billions of people would suffer in the chaos that followed. Thereafter, the princess, Rex realized. If they kill her, there will be no heir to the throne. More explosions shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the lights flickered again. Tom made his decision. "Let me help. I know the palace layout, and the princess trusts me." Rex hesitated. He still did not trust the human, but he was running out of options. "Fine. But if you try anything suspicious, my men will kill you." They ran through corridors filled with smoke and falling debris. Palace guards were running everywhere, trying to organize defenses. The Shadow Fleet had caught them by surprise, and the situation was desperate. When they reached the Royal Wing, they found Empress Lyanna coordinating the defense from her throne room. She looked up as they entered, and her eyes flashed with anger when she saw Rex with Tom. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "Why is the human not with my daughter?" "Your Majesty, I can explain later," Rex said quickly. "Right now we need to get you and the princess to the emergency bunkers." "I will not hide while my people fight and die," the Empress declared, "and I will not abandon my daughter." Another explosion, much closer this time. The crystal walls of the throne room cracked, and everyone could hear the sound of energy weapons firing outside. The Shadow Fleet was already inside the palace. Tom looked at the tactical displays showing the battle. The palace defenses were failing, and enemy troops would reach the Royal Wing within minutes. "Where is Princess Mira?" he asked. "In her room," the Empress replied. "I sent guards to protect her." "That's not enough. If the Shadow Fleet wants her dead, a few guards won't stop them." Tom studied the palace blueprints on the tactical screen. There was a maintenance tunnel that ran from the princess's room to the emergency bunkers, but it would take someone who knew the technical systems to navigate it safely. "I can get her out," Tom said, "but I'll need help." The Empress nodded immediately. "Take whatever you need." Rex was still suspicious. "How do we know you won't use this chaos to escape with the princess? You could sell her to the highest bidder." Tom looked at him with disgust. "Because unlike you, I actually care about helping her." Before Rex could reply, enemy soldiers burst into the throne room. They wore black armor and carried weapons that could cut through steel like paper. The palace guards opened fire, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Tom grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and started shooting back. He was not a soldier, but he had learned to defend himself during years of cargo runs through dangerous space. Beside him, Empress Lyanna fought with the grace of a trained warrior, her energy blade cutting through enemy armor. "Go!" she shouted to Tom. "Save my daughter!" Tom ran through smoke-filled corridors toward the princess's room. Behind him, he could hear the battle raging as more enemy troops poured into the palace. The Shadow Fleet was winning, and everyone knew it. He found the princess's room in chaos. The guards were all dead, and the door had been blasted open. For a terrifying moment, Tom thought he was too late. Then he heard a voice from behind an overturned table. "Tom, is that you?" Princess Mira emerged from her hiding place. She was scared but unhurt, and her voice was stronger than Tom had ever heard it. The stress of the attack had somehow broken through the last barriers holding back her speech. "We have to get you out of here," Tom said. "Can you run?" "Yes." "What's happening? Why are there explosions?" The Shadow Fleet is attacking. They want to kill you to destroy the royal line." The princess's face went pale, but she did not panic. "Then we cannot let them succeed. My people need their Empress." They ran through maintenance tunnels that most people did not even know existed. Tom had memorized the palace blueprints during his weeks there, and his mechanic's knowledge of building systems helped him navigate the complex passages. Behind them, they could hear enemy soldiers searching the royal wing. Voices echoed through the corridors, getting closer. The Shadow Fleet knew the princess was somewhere in the palace, and they would not give up until they found her. "This way," Tom whispered, leading the princess through a narrow ventilation shaft. They crawled through darkness, guided only by Tom's small flashlight. "Tom," the princess said quietly as they crawled, "thank you for everything. Not just today, but for giving me my voice back. Don't thank me yet. We're not safe." They emerged from the ventilation system in the palace's main computer center. Tom had an idea. If he could access the building's security systems, he might be able to slow down their pursuers. "Can you keep watch?" he asked the princess. "Tell me if you see anyone coming." Tom connected his portable tools to the computer system and started working. Within minutes, he had hacked into the palace's defensive systems. He began closing blast doors throughout the building, trapping some enemy soldiers and forcing others to take longer routes. "That should buy us some time," he said. They made it to the emergency bunkers just as Empress Lyanna arrived with the surviving palace guards. The Empress was wounded but alive, and her relief at seeing her daughter safe was obvious. "The Shadow Fleet controls most of the palace," she reported, "but our reinforcements are on the way. If we can hold out for another hour, we might survive this." Tom looked at the tactical displays in the bunker. The situation was still desperate, but it was not hopeless. Then he noticed something that made him smile. "Your Majesty, I have an idea, but I'll need Princess Mira's help." The princess stepped forward. "What do you need me to do?" "The Shadow Fleet is jamming our communications, so we can't coordinate with our reinforcements. But I think I can modify the palace's entertainment system to broadcast on different frequencies. If you could make an announcement to rally your people." "I can do that," the princess said without hesitation. Tom worked frantically to reroute the communication systems while the battle raged above them. Princess Mira practiced what she would say, her voice growing stronger with each word. When Tom finished the modifications, the princess stepped up to the microphone. She looked nervous but determined, every inch the future empress she was meant to be. "People of the Empire," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the modified speakers. "This is Princess Mira. The Shadow Fleet attacks us today, but they will not succeed. We are stronger than they know, braver than they imagine. Fight for your families, fight for your freedom, and fight for the future of our empire." The effect was immediate. Throughout the palace and the surrounding city, people heard their princess's voice for the first time in 3 years. Soldiers who had been retreating turned and fought with renewed courage. Citizens took up arms to defend their homes. The tide of battle began to turn. Within an hour, the Shadow Fleet was in full retreat, their ships fleeing into the darkness of space. The attack had failed, and the Empire was safe. As the all-clear sounded, Empress Lyanna turned to Tom. "You have saved my daughter twice now. First her voice, and now her life. Name your reward, and it shall be yours." Tom looked at Princess Mira, who was talking excitedly with the palace guards, her voice clear and strong. Then he thought about all the humans struggling to find their place in a galaxy that did not want them. "I don't want wealth or power, Your Majesty," he said. "I want something much more valuable. I want freedom for my people." The great hall of the palace had been damaged in the attack, but it still looked magnificent. Sunlight streamed through the cracked crystal walls, creating patterns of light that danced across the floor. Representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered to witness something that had never happened before. a human addressing the Asterian Imperial Council. Tom stood at the center of the hall, feeling very small among all the tall, elegant aliens around him. His simple clothes looked rough compared to their flowing robes and gleaming uniforms. But when he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. "Honored members of the council," he began, "I stand before you not as a beggar asking for charity, but as a representative of humanity requesting justice." Lord Commander Rex was not pleased. Even after the attack, he still believed that giving humans equal rights would weaken the Empire. "This creature asks too much," he said loudly. "Humans are a young species, barely evolved beyond their primitive origins. They cannot be trusted with the same privileges as established civilizations. And yet this primitive human saved our princess when all our advanced medicine failed," came a voice from the back of the hall. Princess Mira walked forward, her head held high with royal dignity. She had insisted on attending the hearing, despite her mother's concerns about her health. The princess looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of nobles who had known her since childhood. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone born to rule. 3 years ago, I lost my voice and nearly lost my mind, she said. The finest doctors in our empire told us there was no hope. They used words like impossible and irreversible to describe my condition. But Tom Bradley, a simple mechanic from Earth, refused to accept their verdict. He saw past my silence to the person trapped inside, and he never gave up on finding a way to help me. She walked over to stand beside Tom. This human showed me something I had forgotten in my years of silence, that true strength comes not from power or technology, but from compassion and determination. If we judge people by their actions rather than their species, humans have already proven they belong among us. Empress Lyanna rose from her throne. She looked older than she had before the attack, but there was a new strength in her bearing. My daughter speaks wisely, she said. The Shadow Fleet attacked us because they saw weakness in our empire. They believed that internal divisions made us vulnerable. Perhaps they were right. The Empress walked down from her throne to stand with Tom and her daughter. For too long we have treated other species as inferior, denying them the rights and opportunities they deserve. This policy has not made us stronger. It has made us isolated and resented. It is time for change. The debate that followed was fierce and lengthy. Some nobles argued that humans were too dangerous to trust, pointing to their history of war and conflict. Others worried about economic disruption if humans were allowed to compete freely in galactic markets. A few even suggested that the Empress was being controlled by some kind of human mind control technology. Tom listened to all the arguments with patience. He had expected resistance, and he was prepared for it. When the nobles finally asked for his response, he stood up calmly. "You speak of human violence and aggression," he said. "But which species attacked your capital yesterday? Was it humans who tried to murder your princess? We have our flaws, just like every species. But we also have our virtues. We are loyal to our friends, protective of the innocent, and willing to help others even when there's nothing in it for us." He gestured toward Princess Mira. "I didn't help the princess because I wanted a reward. I helped her because it was the right thing to do. That's what humans do. We help each other, and we help anyone who needs it, regardless of species or politics." Tom looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of nobles and diplomats from across the galaxy. "You're afraid of what will happen if you treat humans as equals. But I'm not asking you to trust us because we're perfect. I'm asking you to trust us because we've earned it." The debate continued for hours. Some nobles remained firmly opposed, but others began to see the wisdom in the princess's words. The attack by the Shadow Fleet had shown everyone how fragile their empire really was. Perhaps it was time to build bridges instead of walls. Finally, Empress Lyanna called for a vote. One by one, the representatives cast their ballots in the ancient crystal voting machine. Tom watched nervously as the lights flickered and danced, calculating the results. When the final vote was tallied, the hall fell silent. Then the Empress smiled, the first genuine smile Tom had seen from her since his arrival. "The motion passes," she announced. "From this day forward, humans shall be granted full citizenship in the Asterian Empire, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." The hall erupted in mixed reactions. Some cheered, others protested, and a few simply sat in stunned silence. Tom felt dizzy with relief. His people would finally have the freedom they deserved, but the Empress was not finished. "Furthermore," she continued, "I hereby appoint Tom Bradley as the first human ambassador to the Asterian court. He will represent human interests in our government and help us build a stronger, more united empire." Tom's knees nearly gave out. An ambassadorship was far more than he had dared to hope for. It meant humans would have a real voice in galactic politics for the first time in their history. Princess Mira stepped forward and took his arm to steady him. "Congratulations, Ambassador Bradley," she said with a smile that lit up the entire hall. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Tom had to learn about diplomatic protocols, galactic law, and the complex politics of 100 different worlds. It was harder than fixing any broken engine, but Princess Mira helped him every step of the way. Her recovery was remarkable. The neural harmonizer had not just restored her voice, it had given her back her confidence and her joy in life. She threw herself into her royal duties with enthusiasm, working alongside Tom to draft the new treaties that would govern human participation in the Empire. "The Asterian Accords," she said one evening as they reviewed the documents in the palace library. "It has a nice sound to it, don't you think?" Tom nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. Tomorrow he would leave for Earth to deliver the news. Personally, after months in the palace, he was finally going home. "You're thinking about leaving," the princess said quietly. "How did you know?" "You get that distant look when you think about space travel. It's the same look you had when you first arrived here." Tom sighed. "I love Earth, but I'm not sure I belong there anymore. Too much has changed." "Change is not always bad," Princess Mira said. "Without change, I would still be trapped in silence. And humans would still be second-class citizens in the galaxy." She was right, of course. Tom had come to the palace as a simple mechanic, but he was leaving as an ambassador. His people's future had been transformed, and so had his own. The next morning, Tom's ship was loaded with official documents and gifts from the Empress. His old cargo hauler had been repaired and upgraded with Asterian technology, making it one of the fastest ships in human space. Princess Mira came to see him off. She looked every inch the future Empress, dressed in ceremonial robes that sparkled, like starlight. But when she spoke, her voice was warm and friendly, like the scared young woman he had first met. "Thank you, Tom," she said, "for everything. You gave me back my voice, but more than that, you taught me how to use it." "You already knew how," Tom replied. "You just needed someone to remind you." They embraced briefly, and then Tom climbed aboard his ship. As he lifted off from the palace landing pad, he could see Princess Mira standing in the gardens below, waving farewell. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks, but Tom barely noticed the time passing. He was too busy thinking about everything that had happened and everything that would happen next. When Earth finally appeared on his view screen, a beautiful blue marble floating in the darkness, he felt tears in his eyes. The reaction on Earth was everything Tom had hoped for, and more. The news that humans had been granted full citizenship in the Asterian Empire was met with celebration in every human colony. For the first time in their history, humans would be able to trade freely, travel without restrictions, and participate as equals in galactic civilization. But Tom's work was far from over. As the new ambassador, he would spend his time traveling between Earth and the Asterian capital, helping to negotiate trade deals, resolve disputes, and build the relationships that would define humanity's future among the stars. 6 months later, Tom stood once again in the great hall of the Asterian palace. But this time, he was not alone. A delegation of human diplomats, scientists, and business leaders had come to formalize the new alliance. Princess Mira addressed the gathering with eloquence and grace. Her voice, once lost and now restored, carried clearly through the hall, as she spoke of cooperation and mutual respect between species. "Today marks the beginning of a new age," she said. "An age where we judge each other not by the shape of our bodies or the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. The human Tom Bradley showed us that true strength comes from helping others, and that is a lesson we must never forget." When the ceremony was over, Tom found himself alone with the princess in the palace gardens. She had changed since his first departure, growing more confident and wise. Someday soon she would be Empress, and Tom knew she would be a great one. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Giving up your simple life as a cargo hauler for all this complexity?" Tom looked up at the alien stars shining overhead. Somewhere among them was Earth, and the billions of humans who would now have opportunities their ancestors could never have imagined. "No," he said simply. "Sometimes the most complicated problems have the simplest solutions. And sometimes helping one person can change the entire galaxy." Princess Mira smiled. "Wise words from a simple mechanic." "Former mechanic," Tom corrected. "Now I fix relationships instead of engines. And you're very good at it." As they walked back toward the palace, Tom reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. A broken engine had led to a chance encounter, which had led to an impossible medical challenge, which had led to a new alliance between species. Life, he had learned, was full of unexpected connections. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of people, human and alien alike, who just wanted to find their place among the stars. Tom Bradley, former cargo hauler and current ambassador, had helped them take one small step toward that goal. And in the great hall of the palace, where Princess Mira's voice now rang out clear and strong, that step felt like the beginning of something magnificent.